are not my children supposed to be in the public school and to be salt and light within the public school? And so if my children are at a Christian school or a classical Christian school, are we not removing them from an environment that they need to be in? And so how would both of you respond to that? Greg, why don't you go first?
Well, when there's a war, you send soldiers into the war, but you don't pick them out of the population and toss them on the battlefield. You train them first. If you toss them on the battlefield, they're going to be picked off immediately. You're not going to win the war. You have to put them through the time of training. Jesus says we are to be salt and light. That is, the church is to be salt and light. That doesn't mean every one of our children, as children, is going to fulfill that function. They've been entrusted to us as parents to train them, and when we train them, they will be more capable to have an impact for the cause of Christ wherever they happen to be in the public realm, but not until they're trained. We wouldn't take our children and throw them off the deep end of the pier, and this is how you swim. They're going to drown. And I think something similar to that is at play here. And this is the question that I like parents to consider who are concerned about this. Do you think that if you send your child, as your child is right now, you want to send him into public school with this conviction to be salt and light, do you think your child is going to have a salutary impact on those people in the school? Is your child likely to change the students? Or, at this point in their life, are the students likely to change your child? If your child is at a point that you can actually say they are likely to change other people, well, then maybe it's time for them to get in the mix. But I think for most children, especially below high school age, almost certainly, in this aggressive culture, it is much more likely that the school is going to change them than they are going to change the school. And if that's the case, then they're not ready yet to be sent out to be salt and light. That's the question I think people should ask.
And Joe, would you have anything to add to that?
I think I totally agree with Greg, and I think it's an excuse, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think it's an excuse to actually, typically, when I hear it, it's being used as an excuse to avoid the mandate to bring our children up in the faith. I totally agree. We don't send our children out to fight. You don't send lambs out to the slaughter.
Right.
These are impressionable. Jesus said very clearly that if anyone causes one of these little ones who believes in me to stumble, it's better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you be tossed into the sea. And the curriculum and the system as it stands today in the West is not there to nurture young people in a Christian worldview, in the Lordship of Jesus Christ, and all the things that are central to Scripture. And I think one of the problems we have as we address that salt and light question is people see, typically today, the public school as the sort of normative, the normative standard. It's sort of accepted as normative, and anything else is a kind of weird, strange decision. But the state, public school, the state didn't get involved in education till the latter part of the 19th century. It would have been unthinkable for a first century Jew or Christian to take a child and give them to pagans to be educated Monday through Friday, and to think that in synagogue on a Saturday for a couple of hours, you might be able to deprogram them from their pagan education. Unthinkable, totally unthinkable. But because the system used to be actually broadly Christian, and it's been steadily taken from us, people have actually not really thought about what education is meant to be about, and actually how the state system even came about. So I think that acceptance, we have to challenge this idea that the normal perspective is to send your children to the public school to be educated in humanism. And I think Greg's point about the fact that in that the way in which the education is structured today and the content of it means that young minds are sponges. They're They're not critical thinkers at 5, 6, 7, 8, even 13 and 14. They're not critical thinkers. The critical faculties are not developed. They're sponges. You soak in. So the idea that I would take my 8-year-old boy, Isaac, and send him to pagans to educate him in the hope that he's going to convert his teacher or all the kids around him, it's absurd. It's absurd. It's an excuse. I'm tasked as a father with bringing my children up in the admonition and discipline of the Lord, under the lordship of Christ, to see all things in terms of Christ, in whom are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. To abdicate that responsibility of, it's not that it can't be delegated to teachers in a Christian environment, but for me to abdicate that and say, well, I'm just going to let humanists and pagans educate my children, is not being salt and light. That's being irresponsible.